Into the Light lore. There's a lot of new backstory involved with the vendors, grimoire cards, and weapon lore tabs, but there's also articles found in the new book To Old Friends. The articles are written by different members around the system and speak about various things. How the people of Neomuna feel about the Guardians of Earth now over the last year. Interviewing a ghost who finds their guardian for the first time. How people at the farm survived these days after the Shadow Legion would invade, and reminiscing about the great disaster on the moon. Welcome Guardians, let's jump into some of these tales. Need a recap of Destiny's entire story up to the final shape? Click at the top right of this video or the description down below, a 6-hour video of Destiny's entire story with timestamps for each season and release. So the following tales are from the new lore book, To Old Friends. Some of those start with grimoire, so they're like little grimoire cards, but these ones start with article. For example, article Down in the Farm is the first one we're going to read. Some of these aren't like groundbreaking lore, but it's nice to get these little insights into how these people feel, how the people that live on the farm go about their day-to-day lives, how the digital people in the Cloud Arc of Neomuna feel about their human counterparts. Let's first begin with the farm though. By Ember Haddad, senior editor at the City Herald. Readers might be forgiven for imagining that, after having been captured by Shadow Legion forces, EDZ residents might consider relocating to the last city. I took a trip out to the famed settlement known as the Farm to talk to civilians and FOTC officers still stubbornly posted at the edges of the world. We're not fighting for one city, we're fighting for humanity, says Baishan, one of the farm's technicians. Baishan is charged with maintaining the farm's few precious remaining generators, and, more recently, its ether processors. This is our world, and we're going to keep staking a claim. Naomi, a pilot with forces of the city, has been overseeing regular supply runs to the farm in the wake of the fierce bombardment by the Shadow Legion. She sees this as par for the course. Humans are good at adapting to just about anything, she observes. For many, the true revelations have come as a result of continued cooperation with New Elixni neighbors. Longtime farm resident Carol notes, "There's a lot about fallen tech we couldn't have guessed at. With Skiris and Rixor helping out, we've cobbled together our own solar cell network. Our energy output is 5 times what it used to be. The first step toward long-term projects is getting out of starvation mode." And the people here do think long-term. Few of the people I interviewed seem to have much interest in returning to the safety of the city walls. The Witness tore down our cities, blighted our air and water, and sent raiders and monsters after us. We're still here, waiting for the first chance we get to take it all back. The way I see it, those of us here on the farm are just getting a head start. Next up, article, A Darker Hour, Looking Back at the Great Disaster, by Emmanuel Utkin, staff writer for the City Herald. Several lifetimes have passed since the Vanguard suffered a blow from which many felt it might never recover. For the lightless among us, the Great Disaster has become a fable, a story of monsters and tragic heroes encompassing the worst the universe can bring to bear. For many of the City Guardians, however, the events of that time are not simply part of the historical record, but personal memory. "I'd never seen anything like it," Odon Kolo says. "That army the Vanguard put together." Emboldened by the initial victory against the Hive at the site of Burning Lake, the Vanguard in consensus ordered a full-scale assault on the moon. An army of Guardians, thousands strong, marched against the entrenched Hive forces, only to fall by the hundreds to a single Hive champion. Odon was one of the lucky Guardians who managed to reach a transport before the moon was abandoned in the retreat. "Turns out, immortal doesn't mean invincible," Odon observes. "Just means you stand a better chance of living with your mistakes." The disaster spelled the beginning and the end for the Vanguard's military prospects. Any hope of formally organizing the city's lightbearers dissipated. Contemporary records show that many felt the Guardian population soon became ungovernable, even disloyal in the wake of the Vanguard's failure. But events in recent years suggest that Guardians do not require loyalty to a military command to compel them to place themselves in danger on behalf of the city. Whether driven by hope for humanity or a desire for wealth, Guardians have continued to face off against increasingly dire threats. I used to run with Future War Cult, Odon tells me. I guess I started to think, maybe we win the little fights, but we're never going to do anything about the real enemies out there. That war will always be waiting. He laughs, and then someone comes along and kicks Crota's teeth in. Article, United in Hope, Our Neighbors in Neomuna, by Emmanuel Utkin, staff writer at the City Herald. Confirmation of a human settlement on Neptune was only one of several shocking revelations over the course of recent years. Its discovery marks a sea change in our collective access to Golden Age information and technology, long thought to be lost. Perhaps more importantly, it heralds potential reconnection with the rest of our people. Who are these Neomuni? Are they anything like us? Real-time communication between Neomuna and Earth is still stymied by the logistics of crossing enemy lines, in addition to Neomuna's communications restrictions. Data transmissions from Neomuna are strictly controlled and scrutinized for Vex corruption. Therefore, Vanguard sources provided assistance contacting Neomuni citizens. We asked willing individuals to share their perspectives on the possibilities of a long-awaited reunion with Earth. Despite the dangers, many Neomuna denizens are optimistic about the curtain coming down someday in the future. A brief selection of their thoughts follows. I don't know how things would have shaken out if we stayed on Earth. Maybe we wouldn't have the Cloud Arc or nanotechnology. But if we make it through this fight with the Witness, I think it's only fair we send over, what we have on food production, terraforming. There's a whole planet to reclaim. I'd love to read some new Earth literature. I always assumed the stories we managed to bring with us were going to be the last of their kind. Does anyone over there like detective stories? It's been interesting to see the Guardians at work. Is everyone on Earth like that? Going at Mach 12 all the time? Stay tuned for continued coverage, including a guest feature from Neomuna's very own Jisoo Calorando. Article, Hot Off the Shelf, by Ember Haddad, senior editor at the City Herald. My new friend is an unassuming young man in a torn flight jacket, still coated in a fine layer of dust. His ghost, Rivet, is looking impressively smug for a small metal being. They told me I'd never find my guardian, Rivet tells me. That I should try my luck with the Hive, but look at him, he's beautiful. Like all Risen, Rivet's beautiful new guardian has no memory of who he was, where he is, or what his purpose might be. But he nods agreeably when Rivet explains to him that Guardians protect the last city. I'm here to fight Fallen and Cabal, the Guardian says proudly, but only the mean ones. He's still figuring a few details out, Rivet says. It's been a very eventful past few years in the Sol system. I ask Rivet at this point in time, how does a ghost go about getting their new Guardian up to speed? Well, you start by warning them about the threats we'll be facing in the field, right? I haven't really gotten into the part about the end of the world just yet though. Rivet's guardian looks confused. The world is ending? Vanguard operative Shah Han, my escort through the Cosmodrome and local shepherd of those he calls New Lights, has similar advice. It helps to focus on the basics, let them test out their light, learn what they're capable of. The details can come later. Even now. Yep, once they've got a handle on the little things, saving the world comes naturally. Article, Visitors Out of Dreams, Changing Reef Relations, by Leah Terrazas, political correspondent at the City Herald. Recent strategic summits between Queen Mara Sov of the Awoken and the Vanguard have provided our citizens with the rarest of honors, a glimpse of our Awoken neighbors. The city has hosted a small Awoken population for centuries, but Reef-born subjects of the Queen were more commonly contained to Awoken settlements and outposts within their own territory. The Queen's secrets were guarded zealously, and prior relations with the city often bordered on hostility. In the face of common threats, however, this isolationist policy has since softened. For today's citizens, the arrival of Awoken corsairs is a minor spectacle. "I just know it's some sort of divine monarchy," one local commented. "How are we supposed to keep up with everything in Seoul these days? But they sure look impressive." Initial impressions of the Awoken corsairs appeared to be positive, with several residents describing them as disciplined, worldly, and surprisingly grounded. "We made a choice to help Earth long ago," said one corsair. "I'm glad we can do so openly." While the imminent battle for the traveler is foremost on everyone's mind, several corsairs noted their hopes for continued cooperation, especially given rumors of a resurgence of the infamous Ahamkara. As another corsair put it, "There's a lot we're going to have to figure out together in a hurry." And lastly, we have Article, A Consensus for the Rest of Us, by Leah Terrazas, political correspondent at the City Herald. Parika Kosar, Argus McCown. If there is anything the current state of consensus hopefuls have in common, it's that they offer a very different kind of representation for the mortal population of the last city. Raucous political gatherings have become a staple of the city's nightlife in recent months, with potential candidates vying for the chance to make their case for candidacy in the city's parks and public squares. Chief among their demands is the urgent restoration of fair representation to the city's government. Notably absent are the old trappings of long-established faction loyalties. This move away from Guardian-driven factions speaks to a more mortal-centric framing, claims Dima Palamo, one of several enthusiastic volunteers campaigning on behalf of McCown. "We know the Vanguard can handle the long view, but we need the short-term perspective as well as the immortal one." Warlock Vanguard Ikora Ray has repeatedly pledged to restore the consensus, promising to hold civilian elections once the immediate threat is over. Not everyone is content to wait. How many citizens were exiled from the city because they got on Executor Hideo's bad side? Asks one local man. I mean, how many Guardians got the boot because they wanted Guardians ruling the city? Isn't that what we have now? If things are so desperate, why don't we invite some of our people back home? Others call the excitement over elections premature. If we lose the war, I'm pretty sure none of us are going to be alive to do any voting. It is difficult to argue the point that election turnout might be poor under the current circumstances, but if the lightless members of our community are to have a voice in the future, it's clear that there are those ready and eager to speak. So Guardians, there you have it, some articles from the new book to old friends. As I mentioned, nothing crazy lore-wise involving, the Witness, Traveler, and big story moments, but these focus on the little ones. Characters in different locations across the system and how they feel about certain things. If you'd like to see some more Destiny lore and mysteries just like this video, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. I thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video.